Welcome to another Library Talk About event. This is How to Be a Better You with Dan Crowley.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and Gabby, thank you for all your help and your support. I am Dan Crowley, and I am a life coach and personal growth consultant. I have been in the coaching and counseling business for almost 48 years. I started in 1975 as a psychiatric clinic technician in the United States Air Force. Got my bachelor's degree in 1977 and my master's degree in December of 1980. I started a private practice in San Antonio in January 1981. I was in private practice until 2022 when I decided to retire and come back to hometown, which is Madras. I was not born here, but I was raised here. The Crowley family has been in Madras since 1888, either in the surrounding area or in Madras itself. And so I feel like this is my home, and I feel good in it, so that's really good. In the years that I've been working, I have put together several programs. This one in itself is How to Be a Better You. And that means how to become intimate with yourself. Okay? Most of us don't realize that in our head we have ideas that block us from being intimate. And those ideas may be because we were hurt in our developing years, or we were made fun of, or we withdrew, or we didn't really get the positive nurturance we needed and got more negative nurturance than we needed. So I've tried to address those factors in 10 sessions. And so this event will be a 10-month event, one Thursday night a month for the next 10 months. Okay. So I'm hoping that I'll engage you good enough today to come back next month for the second installment. Because it is an installment kind of thing, just like growing up. It's an installment kind of thing. So what got me interested in being a social worker? I had an abusive childhood, which left some scars, which I covered with alcohol. I began to drink when I was 11 and continued to drink until I was 27. When I was 27, I was so down and out that I wanted to kill myself. However, I had two daughters at home, 7 and 5, and I didn't want them to find me dead in any kind of way. So I got drunk and left to go to a place where I knew nobody would find me when I was dead. So I did not get there. Okay. What happened for the first time in my career of drinking is that I actually wrecked my car, okay, and was arrested and thrown in jail. This was a second arrest in less than 5 years. And the first jail I was thrown into was a beautiful jail when you compare it to the second jail I was thrown into. But the first jail was new and clean. They provided cigarette, tobacco, and papers for you to roll. Good bean soup. Was good. Nice place. The jailer was really friendly. It was cool. I got bailed out early. I didn't have to stay overnight on that one. But the second jail I went to, you can't imagine it. I couldn't imagine it even as I was in it. It was in Benton County, Arkansas. It was a big, wide, open cell. Okay. It had a little concrete bunker in the middle with 2 bunks on each side, so it's 12 bunks, and 40 people. So there was no way, when I got arrested and thrown in there at 2 o'clock in the morning, to get a bunk. And I ended up sleeping, passing out actually, on a piece of cardboard on a cement floor. And when I woke up, the the dirt was about that much higher than the cement, the cardboard I was sleeping on. And I looked at that and I thought, what am I doing here? And then I heard a voice in my head, which I attribute to my higher power, that said, you are better than this. And I believed it, and I quit drinking that day. I did go to AA for a year. I got the 12 steps. I learned them. I did not stay with AA, but I have been sober for over 53 years. So I'm proud of that. Okay. So that was my turning point in my life from being not good enough to beginning a program that would make me good enough, that would make me feel good enough within myself that I could look you in the eye and say, okay, I see what you're saying and I can do that, or what you're requesting, I can do that, or what you're requesting doesn't fit with my rules for who I am, and I can't do that. And I was okay with that. Right? For I don't know, last 40 years or so, I've been okay with that. Good. So that's kind of a little bit of my background. Okay. So my program now is, having learned what I've learned to become who I am, the idea is to pass it on. Right? That's what we want to do as we grow up and we become who we are. We want to pass on the good parts of who we are so other people can learn and use it and become wise for themselves. Okay? So that's what I do, and what I want to do tonight is do the introduction to what the programs are and what they're about. So my goal is to introduce the steps tonight while I'm studying on my life base, so that you can know who is mind's eye, because mind's eye and or the Holy Spirit is a guide within you that will let you know whether you're doing right or whether you're doing wrong. And if you're doing right, will fill you with wonderful, good, warm feelings. And if you're doing wrong, will fill you with guilt and shame. So we want to look at that and understand it, because most of us grow up with people who, not intentionally, but with authority figures who will tell us when we're doing right and wrong. First 6 years of our lives, we incorporate those, and then we live them out unless we have an intervention, either personally or something from outside, that tells us we can do different, we can be better, we can become all what we were meant to be, we can reach our potential. Okay? And that's a process in itself, and that's what we want to work on. And so I want to talk just a little bit about life base. Okay? Life base, I figured out, is where we all stand. Okay? There's 8 billion people in the world. Every one of us stands on our life base. And life base is where we think, when our thoughts will trigger our feelings, and our feelings will influence our behavior. Okay? If we learn that much, we've become we've begun, actually, the model of integration within ourselves. If we learn what thoughts trigger what feelings based on behavior, and then evaluation of that behavior triggers our self-worth, self-image, and self-esteem. Makes us good or bad. Okay? So in the first few years of my life, I lived here in Medras with my mom and my dad, and my grandma and my grandpa, and my aunts and my uncles and my cousins, and that was on Dad's side. Over in Terrebonne was my other grandma and grandpa, my aunts and my uncles, my cousins. It was really a good family kind of interaction. We would have Sunday meetings and all of that kind of stuff. And I grew up till the age of 8 feeling pretty positive about myself, feeling pretty good. Okay? I didn't have any doubts about me or anything. I had one incident I remember, several I remember, but one of them is when I blew a firecracker up in my mouth, but that was just kind of an inquisitive thing. I wanted to see what it was like smoking, so it blew up. But one incident I remember is that I learned to read before I went to school. And my dad was so proud of that one Sunday he actually had the family gather around and gave me a newspaper and told me to read an article, and I was able to do that. And then I was able to say what it meant to me, and it pretty much fit, and everybody was just, really proud. So was I. very good. But when I was 8, Mom and Dad divorced. Okay? And that was not a good time for me. Okay? I was the oldest. I had a sister and a brother. My sister was a year and a half younger than I was, and my brother was 5 years younger than I am. My brother still lives here in Madras. We're still friends, and that's good. So anyway, they divorced. Mom and the kids, we moved to Terrebonne to live with Grandma and Grandpa Lado. And then everybody decided that we would go to the valley and become migrant farm workers. Okay? So we went to the hops. Grandpa was retired in his 50s for a heart condition and was on disability. Grandma didn't work and Mama didn't work. And so we had money problems. And we went to the valley, and that was my first job at 8 years old, 8 years old. I got to string hops at the top of the wire. I thought it was the funnest thing. They had a little two-story cart that you drove down like a go-kart, and then you drove real slow, and as you stopped at the hop, you spun the tip around so that it would grow up straight and flower. That was cool. I liked it. Mom, on the other hand, didn't like it, so she decided to get a job. And she answered an ad in the paper, the Corvallis paper, for a dry cleaner presser, and got the job. And eventually she and the man who owned the dry cleaner got together. And his first sentence to me was, "If you were my kid, I would beat the crap out of you." That is fact. That was his first sentence to me. And he had reason for it, but at the time, I don't think he had reason for it. But anyway, he spent the next 8 years proving his sentence. And so when I left home, I dropped out of high school when I was 16 and went to work on a dairy farm. And that's where I got my first story. Okay? My first story in terms of social work is that the job I got when I dropped out of high school was working on a dairy farm in Boring, Oregon. My job was to clean the barn after the cows were milked. Okay? So my job was to shovel crap. Okay? And I would go to the barn every morning at 8 o'clock, and I would put on my rubber apron and my rubber boots and my rubber gloves, pick up my shovel, and I would begin to scoop and put it into a wheelbarrow. When the wheelbarrow was full, I would walk it down to the end of the barn and then dump it into a spreader. Okay? When the spreader was full, I would get to start the tractor and take it to the field that we were spreading it on that day. I had that job for 3 months. Okay? And in that time, I didn't realize till way after, but the crop that I was spreading on was alfalfa. And when alfalfa matures, it has little purple flowers on it. Right? And so the alfalfa matured, I quit, I went into the Air Force, and that was a story for another time. But in 1981, the saying come out, and it was on bumper stickers, it was on T-shirts, and it was S happens, right? Anybody remember that? S happens, okay? And I couldn't understand it. Every time I saw one of those stickers or those T-shirts, I would become very frustrated. Okay? And I finally realized that the issue was, yeah, S happens, right? But S is a natural product of being a person or an animal. And it's not that S happens, it's what you do with it after it happens. And so there's two things you can do. You can dung heap it, or you can compost it. If you dung heap it, maggots are going to grow. So if you dung heap in your mind, if you keep those same thoughts going on and on and on, the maggots are going to continue to expand in your mind. The feelings are going to continue to paralyze you inside. And the behavior is going to become destructive to you and others. But if you compost it, then flowers will grow. You will open up and you will become more than you ever thought possible. And that's what really started me on this process of who is Mind's Eye and what it's all about. Okay? And so that's where we want to go right now. So This is mind's eye. Okay? Mind's eye is the part of you that sees both inside of you and outside of you. And we will go into this more in our next session, but in our mind, I have a pragmatic vision of what our mind looks like. And what our mind looks like is a conscious, a subconscious, and an unconscious. The conscious is where we recognize thoughts, we have our thoughts, and we recognize our feelings. The subconscious is where we have our belief sets and our image, worth, and esteem. So we have three major belief sets, and the first one is our world order beliefs. Our world order beliefs are the rules that we live by. I kind of say that in terms of those are our shoulds and our should nots. Okay? So there are musts, our can'ts, our have tos, there are absolutes. Those are our rules, our absolute. Okay? So like I should, when I go to the bank, make a deposit or withdrawal. Okay? I should not rob the bank. Okay? I should, when I drive on the street at 25 miles an hour, I should not drive on Main Street at 50 miles an hour. Okay? Although I have to tell you, from my office, I see folks who are driving 50 miles an hour. Okay. So, and they're wrong. But, okay. So mind's eye is in here, and mind's eye is looking to see behaviorally whether or not I'm following my rules. Your mind's eye is looking to see if you're following your rules. Our rules are similar, but some of them are not the same. Oftentimes the rules that we have that are not the same cause great conflict in our life with other people. Okay? And we're not going to get into that tonight, but we will get into it. Okay? So mind's eye then, mind's eye is always monitoring our behavior. That's the part we want to look at. Our behavior and our behavior with others and other people's behaviors. There's three parts. Me, myself, and you. Okay? For you, it's you, yourself, and me. Okay? For those of us who have significant others, it's me, myself, and you, yourself, and me. Lots of room for stuff there. Okay? Our second belief set is our value beliefs. And our value beliefs contain our morals, our ethics, and our legality. Okay? And those are very important. They're reinforced in terms of our right and wrong by the world order beliefs and how we look at them. Okay? So there's a value beliefs, and there are many more parts that go into our values. Okay? Our gender will put a value within us. Okay? Our culture will put a value within us. Our race will put a value within us. Where we live will put a value within us, and the country we belong to will put a value within us. So we have lots of beliefs in terms of, and one belief I have now that I'll share nationwide. I spent 20 years in the Air Force protecting my country. I never got to war. I never even held a weapon except once. But I was ready. I volunteered, and I would have gone had they told me to. Okay? I did volunteer. I was not allowed to go to combat because of the clearance I held and the information that I had. So I didn't get to go, and I'm very glad for that now. Okay? With a little bit of guilt and shame. Okay? So the values are very important, and it's important that we understand what our values are about. The last one, and probably the most active one, is our value judgment beliefs. And our value judgment beliefs, there's only three of them that I've been able to determine. Okay? Good and bad, right and wrong, fair and unfair. Okay? So life, mind's eye, okay, fits right at the part of value judgments, because he's looking out, or she is looking out at behavior, yours or hers, him, me. Okay? We're looking at our own behavior, we're looking at other people's behavior, and we're judging it. That's why we have a value judgment belief. All right? So if you do what is right within my rules, hey, you're okay. I like you, okay? And if I do what's within your rules, then I'm okay and you like me, okay? But if you do what I think is wrong, even if you think it's right, if I think it's wrong, I'm going to judge it as wrong, and I'm going to have an emotional response. Okay? And that response could be hurt, but hurt, while it happens, is an invisible emotion. Okay? So mind's eye is looking out here, judging our behaviors, and going back up to world order beliefs and saying, does this fit with the rules that we have? Okay? And if it does, it's going to trigger our emotions to feel good, and we're going to act in terms of friendly towards each other. Make sense? Okay. So, but if we judge it as wrong, bad, or unfair, it's going to trigger hurt. We're going to cover that with either anger or fear. Okay? So anger or fear are the two emotions we want to look at because they're the ones that get rid of hurt for us. And we can stay angry for a long time because if it's you that's wrong or bad or unfair to me, then I'm going to blame you for my anger. Okay? It's going to be your fault. No problem. Okay? Just like it's Joe's fault now. Okay? But what that's telling me is that the anger that I have towards you is because you're causing a loss to me, because I have to go back and look at your behavior and say, why is it wrong? But that's too much work. I'll just blame you. Okay? I'll just call it your fault. And we do this because it works. It's a cultural or national belief system that we use from our judicial system, from our presidential system, from our legislature, from our judicial system, Supreme Court. Okay. So we have been taught that when we get mad at other people, that it's their fault that we're mad. They've been taught when they get mad at us that it's our fault that they get mad. Okay? So what we do is get mad and I say, hey, you did this, I don't like it, you need to apologize to me. Okay? And if they apologize, hey, it's cool. They acknowledge that they're wrong, I'm right, I can now let go. Make sense? If they say, not even going to happen, okay, I'm right, and I'm going to stay right, regardless of what you think, and then we're going to get into conflict. Okay? So that's another thing we do, and that's mind's eye, using world order beliefs to uphold our values and our value judgment systems in terms of blaming other people. So we're going to be working on all of that. Mind's eye does not really process all the information we see each moment of our day. It processes it through world order beliefs, and value judgment beliefs. And it does this in such a way as to satisfy positively all the parts within us. And if we live by wrong, bad, and unfair, he can't do that. He cannot process it to satisfy all the parts because the parts don't get satisfied when somebody else is wrong. Okay? That becomes just chaos, emotional chaos, sometimes behavioral chaos, and certainly intellectual chaos, okay? Which probably goes into spiritual chaos also. So there are 5 parts to each one of us, and these parts are mind, brain, body, spirit, and soul. Okay? They're all interconnected, but lots of times we don't know that they're interconnected because we're not taught that they're interconnected. We're taught that they're there, but we're not taught how they work together. Okay? So it's important to identify them. Mind is where we think, which triggers our feelings, which influences our behavior. Mind and brain work together for the feelings and behavior. If mind's eye sees something that's wrong, bad, and unfair, it's going to connect the brain and say, fire up the neurons that will fire your anger or your emotion, and fire up the chemicals that will make your body move. Okay, behavior. Then after we process what it is, what we do, then Spirit's going to come, or mind's eye going to come and say, hey, that was good or bad or whatever that you did, right? And whatever emotions we have as a result of that behavior is going to be deposited in soul. Soul is the keeper of our emotions. Questions, thoughts? I forgot to say that. If you have questions, please ask. I believe that a lot of people believe that questions can interrupt the flow, but what I've found is that even if we go down a rabbit hole, it's a rabbit hole we'll come out of for a better shape at the end, because rabbits have two entrances, an in and an out. Just look at Bugs Bunny. Okay, so we talked about this. We reside in mind, work with the information we've cataloged there. So we're going to introduce in chapter 1, which will be the second one from today.
I have to sneak out real quick and see what my daughter, it's Rebecca and she is disabled, so I kind of, if she calls me, I check on her.
Okay.
She's the one that lives with me, and like I said, she is disabled.
All right, well, tell her I said hi.
She got in a really bad car accident a few years back.
Okay, so chapter 1 will introduce the 5 parts that make up self. And these parts are mind, brain, body, spirit, and soul. But chapter 1 actually works with mind. And we go through it and we present examples and we begin to get an idea of how our mind operates. Okay? I know that science has said that where we think is in the frontal cortex. Where we think is on one side and where we feel is on the other. They say, Jung, I forgot his first name already, only after 40 years, but,
Carl
Carl
Jung?
Thank you, Carl Jung, all right. Yeah. Carl Jung says that if we can integrate both parts of our personality, that both parts are there, male and female, if we can integrate those, we can become a whole person. Okay? My idea is that if we do all this work, we will have integrated those, and we will be able to have thoughts that are mostly male and feelings that are mostly female in our whole our whole incorporation of self, to become better able to handle any situation in the world. So I believe that mind actually is ambiguous. Okay? It doesn't really have a place in brain. I think of it as a floating mass, kind of like comes here and goes there or whatever. But there's no rigidity like the back in the lizard brain or all those other parts that I forget. Okay, so chapter 2 is going to explain the 5 steps of a life transaction. Another thing that most folks don't know is that we operate on a 5-step process. All of us, as I said, stand on life base. Okay. From life base, where we think, feel, and act, we look at our life situation. Okay. So as I look at my life situation right now, I'm in front and I'm talking a lot and I'm watching to see what my reaction is so I know whether I'm doing good or bad. Okay. So I'm on my life base looking out here at your reaction and bringing it in, assessing it in terms of my rules, and taking the action to change my speech as I think will attract your interest more. Right? So the results really won't be known until after we're done, and I can say, did you get it? Okay? And you can say, heck no, or hey, yeah. Okay? And then after I get the results, I get my consequence rewards. So if I did good enough and you got something out of it, my consequence rewards will come back into mind and say you did good, you are good, and you have confidence to do it again. Okay? So it's a 5-step process that gives us a constant reinforcement, and it's happening even as we're talking right now, because any life situation we're in is going to cause these 5 steps once it's over to complete with consequential rewards, and that's going to reinforce your self-image, your self-worth, and your self-esteem. Yeah? Make sense? So if I do it good enough, I'm going to have worth. I'm going to have a self-image that says I'm a good enough teacher. Okay? And I'm going to have a value of having done a good job, and I'm going to have confidence and a self-esteem that says, you can do this, Dan. Okay? So when that happens, if it's good, then Spirit will deposit those results in my soul, and it will reinforce over time, to remembering what I felt like good. It will reinforce over time that I want to feel good, and so I'll do things in order to feel good. Right? So it's behavioral change as well as thought change and emotional change. Our third chapter will explain how mind responds to bad acts and how Spirit tells soul to deposit those results. And then our fourth chapter will be the introduction of the shards of reality. I like the shards of reality, so I'm going to tell you about it right now. We don't have to wait till the fourth chapter, but we'll go over more. Okay? So in the 1890s, a person in England who had spent much time in the Middle East wrote a poem of like 600 stanzas. Okay? And it was to explain the Sufi way of living to the Western civilization. Okay? In that poem, there's one stanza that stands out. Okay? And it says that once, it doesn't say this, I've paraphrased it. Once upon a time, there was a mirror that showed all of reality, every piece of reality there is. And anybody who looked in that mirror got all of reality. So there was no conflict. Everybody knew everything. But somehow the mirror got broken. When the mirror got broken, all we had left was pieces. So now we each pick up our shard of the mirror, look in it, and think that that's all of reality. Okay? But when you pick up your shard, it's not the same as my shard. So your reality is different from my reality, and conflict happens. Okay? So we want to look at that when we look at it and really begin to look at what is my shard of reality. What is it that I believe? What is it that I think reality is about? Because the one part of that that's true is reality is in our mind. Okay, so we talked about our rules for feelings and our patterned actions follow them in Chapter 4. Chapter 5 is very complex, and it's when we talk about how man's eye tells brain what to tell body to feel and how to act. So that's our neurons and our chemicals. Right? I know that much about the brain and its actions. Our feelings are caused by neurons, and our muscles move chemically. That's all I know. Okay? Not a neurologist. Okay. Then how Spirit determines moral, ethical, legal, societal, cultural rightness or wrongness, and defines the Spirit as the keeper of our self-will, self-worth, soul as the keeper of our... That's wrong. Spirit defines that as the keeper of our self-image, soul as the keeper of our self-worth, and mind's eye as the keeper of our self-esteem. So they all have functions, but they're all working together. And once we get that integration complete, we be more in control of ourselves than we ever thought possible. So lastly, we'll describe the balance between a state of joy and a state of shame, how that is determined. But if we are able to live in a state of joy during our life, Erik Erikson, the 20th most cited psychologist of the 20th century, came up with the 8 stages of life. So if we live joyfully in our life, at the end of life, we will end up with what he called ego integrity. Ego integrity. Ego integrity is where we will end up thinking, hey, I lived a good life. I did things that helped people. I feel good about my life as it was. I don't need to go back and change anything, and I'm okay. But if we live with the shame, okay, then we're going to become full of despair. And at the end of life, we're going to be saying, what was I here for? What was it all about? Why did these things happen to me? How did I not get to be better? And I always ended up being not good enough. I always ended up having no worth, negative worth. I always ended up having low self-esteem and no confidence in who I am or what I did. And for me, a long time ago, I made the choice, I don't want to get to despair. Okay? When I get to be 80, whatever, I will want to have ego integrity. And that's my goal for living life, okay? Is to be able to have ego integrity at the end. However, I am hoping that that end don't come too soon. So, chapter 7 will tell us how loss and problem solving can work together. This is when we begin to put it together in a way that we can deal with. Because, as I said, S happens. We can say hurt happens. It does. Okay? I can't think of a lifetime without hurt. And I don't think anyone else can either. But hurt results in loss, and that's what we have to learn, is how to deal with loss. And hurt always causes problems in terms of dealing with loss, so we have to learn how to deal with loss and solve the problem that triggered the hurt. Whether that's accepting what we can't change or changing what we can and having the wisdom to know the difference, that's what I want to do. I want to accept the things I can't change. I can't change you, I can't change the universe, but I can change me. And if I can do that and solve the problem so that as I change me, it affects not only me, but you too, then that's going to be good for both of us, whether, I was going to say whether you know it or not, but it's probably not the right way to put that. So anyway, it'll be good for both of us because there will be less conflict between the two of us. And chapter 8 will tell us how to resolve past traumas. All right. As I told you, when I was 27, I had many traumas in my life, and those traumas kept me from being close to my wife, did not keep me being close to my kids. Because when my first daughter was born, I was 20, my wife was 18. And I have to clarify, my wife at that time was 18. And we'd been married for 2 years when my daughter was born. My wife had problems with the birth. She was hospitalized for 8 days. The baby was kept in the neonatal for that time. And so I couldn't hold the baby when it was first born. But when she came home, she went to take a nap. And this is what I call another turning point in my life. I hold my daughter for the first time. My daughter's name is Paris. And I looked at her and I said, Paris, I promise you I will never treat you the way I was treated. And I held that promise. And I now have 7 children, 2 natural children, 3 adopted children, and 2 stepchildren. I have treated all of them with love, respect, kindness, and they're good kids. Okay? They work, they pay their taxes, they have children, they raise them. Their kids are good. My great-grandson is going to be good. So okay, we're going to learn how to let go of traumatic loss and learn how to use that as a way not to be a bearer of trauma to other people. Okay? Because that's generational sin right there. Okay? So we're going to change that. And then chapter 9 will show us how to deal with the fear of the future or the stress that we live under. And we do. Okay? But if we recognize that anxiety is a result of past trauma, whether great or small, that anxiety is a result of past trauma, which is projected into our future, which is felt in our now. Okay? And that's the definition that I have of anxiety. If I'm scared of something that might happen up there, it's because it happened back there, and I haven't resolved it yet. Make sense? Okay. So those are the chapters, those are the sessions that we're going to go through. At the end of each session, there will be questions on the part of the pamphlets that I'll hand out. There will be questions to help you get ready for the next chapter, the next session. So it's a progressive learning program that at the end, we want the results to be for us to be more than we ever thought we could be at the beginning of this journey that we're going to be on. Okay. Thoughts or questions?
What's the difference between self-image, self-esteem, and self-worth?
Self-image is the way I see myself, either good enough or not good enough. Self-worth is what I feel about myself, either I'm worthy or I'm not worthy. Self-worth worthy is joy. Self-worth not worthy is shame. Okay? And self-esteem is, did I do good enough? And that's the distinction. People don't realize it's, am I good enough? Do I do good enough? There's two parts. But what I do is what I measure in relation to world order beliefs to give me who I am. Does that make sense? Okay. So if I do good enough, then I'll be good enough. Okay. If I be good enough, then I'll have positive self-worth. Good question. Thank you. Okay. Any more?
I have a question about follow-up to that. So how do we get away from just our actions or our performance as telling us how good or worthy we are?
Okay, that's a good question. Okay, so one of the ways to do that is to begin to look at our world order beliefs, and a way to do that is look at it, write down. I should do this. I shouldn't do that. Okay. In fact, Josh Axe, Dr. Axe, just wrote a book that I think it's titled "Do This, Not That." I just heard about it last night. So you measure out your shoulds and your should nots, and you understand that when you do a should not, mind's eye is going to register that and tell you that you didn't do good enough, you're not good enough, you didn't do good enough, therefore you're not good enough, therefore you're a shameful person. Okay? If you do what you should, the mind's eye is going to say, hey, great for you, lots of joy, you're good enough. Okay? And that's going to go back to consequential rewards and bring you back to building a positive image, worth, and esteem. Okay? They're not separate, they work together. They are separate, they work together. Okay? Sorry about that. Did that help? Did that answer?
Yeah, and I think you'll continue to answer it in further sessions.
Yeah,
too.
we will.
Yeah.
We'll get into it a lot, believe me. Okay, I'm excited about this program. Don't know if you can see that or not, but I think that when we talk about individual intimacy, being intimate with ourselves, that we understand this thought, feeling, action sequence, we can begin to come to grip with the rules we have about who we are. Okay, so I'll just end this with one more part, and that is a person named Tabby Calmer, okay, in 1975, came out with the idea, which I totally believe, that all of us have 5 drivers that we learn from the moment of birth that go into our unconscious. Right? And those drivers are, there's no order. Everybody is individually order their own drivers. But they're to be strong, be perfect, try hard, hurry up, and please or take care of other people. Okay? My driver is that I have to be strong enough. It took me a long time to figure this out. I have to be strong enough to take care of others perfectly. And when I don't do perfect, I have to try harder. I have to hurry up and try harder to do it again. That's my motivation. That's my drivers. Those drivers can be positive or negative. And if you're evaluating your behavior in a negative manner, it's going to be a negative driver. And instead of feeling good, you're going to feel bad. All right? So we want to learn how to turn those drivers into motivators. Because the whole sequence is, I will take care of you good enough in order to please me so I can feel good. It becomes my motivator, not my driver. Okay? Make sense? The issue is sometimes in conflict, I will get to the point where I have to please you while by taking care of you so much that I lose taking care of me. And when I lose taking care of me, I'm going to be angry at you because I want to feel like it's your fault that I'm not feeling good again. So I've got to learn a way to go around that so that I can be open and be okay with me and be okay with you and do what we need to do in order to be intimate together. 4 spheres of intimacy. To be intimate together and to feel good with each other and build up our self-esteem and make us feel good to be in the world. All right, thank you all for coming. Third Thursday in May, we'll meet again, and we'll go into the 6 stages of change and why this is going to be a 9-month program. Okay. So, thank you all. Appreciate your attention. Appreciate your questions. Thank you.